Hello there, all of you internet users, good people, friends, peasants, countrymen, country full of countrymen and women. Don't know if that's even a term. Is that a term? Don't know. Don't think so. I don't know if it's Shakespeare or what. I don't want to quote fucking Shakespeare on YouTube. I mean, you have to do Shakespeare if you do drama at like college, right? And it's like, it's fucking crap in it. I mean, it's not crap, but like, it's really good. Like Sonnet 116 is probably one of my favourite. It's got some really deep references in there, thematically, it's amazing. Let thy bending sickles cut, with that. I might even read it. I'll find if I can find it. See if I can find it. I'm on fucking airplane mode because the last time I tried to make this video, Facebook notifications started popping up because my phone's hacked and they watch everything I do all the time on the screen, and they can hear what I'm doing as well from the door and from the corridor. There's like laminate flooring throughout the ward. You can literally hear like a pin drop at the other end of the building. You can hear everything I'm saying. Fortunately, they can't hear my thoughts, because if I was mad enough to think they could, then I probably think they'd be using that against me too. But I don't use my superpowers against any of you, so, swings and roundabouts in it, bruv, or sis, or whatever. I spilled something on my top today, bit of juice I think. Not very good, or it might have been from brushing my teeth. Put my washing in yesterday, and went to sleep right before I got it out, and when I came back to it, it was like sopping wet on a pile on top of the tumble dryer and tumble dryer and washing machine, and somebody had just gainfully taken a piss all over it. It's fucking disgusting. It's absolutely stinking, and like, yeah, it's gross as fuck. And this is like a PQ ward, yeah. So like, you're not allowed like into it. This is a restricted room. You're only allowed in there with a staff member. So it can only have been, I can't really understand how somebody could have done that without the staff member being like, "What the fuck are you doing, bruv?" It's an all-male ward, psychiatric intensive care unit. It's high security. Nobody's allowed in there on their own. You have to be supervised to enter that room. So it's like, yeah. And then, so I washed it all again last night at like whatever time it was in the morning. And then I washed it. I've just put it in the tumble dryer, but it's still, and he'd like pissed all over. It could have been a she, but I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a, you never know. This basically still stinks of piss. If you want to come and speak to me or visit me, I'm the one in a hemp dip and dry t-shirt that smells like piss on the bottom. Yeah, I did wash it all again, but like, because it pissed all over the tumble dryer. Yeah, the tumble dryer has been cleaned now. It didn't smell like it when I put it in, but I think in the interim between me putting my re-washed washing back into the tumble dryer and the whole thing being then sort of like cleaned out after I, fair play to Signet, they did. When I said to this little dude that sent me into my to get my stuff in the dryer this morning, I was like, this whole machine just has got urine all over it. Yeah. So I guess the auspice that are taking good care of me doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, if you pardon the pun, medical legal scrutiny, as well as my section papers are fucking full of errors, taking it right up to CEO level, and like, they're just basically they're both complicit, both the NHS Devon Partnership Trust, who are trying to fund my care, saying that I'm not a Bristol resident, and AWP, who are allowing them to do that. And also, like yesterday, my GP rang me up, right? And I've made loads of YouTube videos about it. All I've got on the internet is, sorry, not on the internet, on the medical record system, right? I've made other videos about this. They have to keep contemporaneous record keeping, is what it's called. I'm on loads of different injections, and oral antipsychotics and mood stabilizers and benzodiazepines and all kinds of things. Opiate painkillers, vaccinations. For a long time I was on a depot, which is what they call the injection, for aripiprazole. Now when I researched it online, before I jump the gun, when I researched it, they said that there are situations, if I got hit by a bus on leave, I would have died on the operating table if this information. So there's absolutely nothing. So there's one sentence, right, in my medical records that says, detained by MH at present. It's about as kind of, non-specific and generic as you could possibly want to be if you tried, which they can't not have done, because there's probably so the hospital I'm in, I got a subject access request from my GP, right, and they delivered it. I'd been in hospital since July 24, and I got the Medi2 data email in May. I've put this into shared cloud folder, asked for legal assistance, and told the police. When I googled it, and Google it again and again and again, to make a mistake in medical record keeping is a sackable offence, but to just not put any detail at all. I've been on probably 10 different medications, both oral and injection, and antibiotics, and antibiotics. A lot of them don't contraindicate with other things, but yeah, basically there's just this informational blackout. It actually is a criminal act under the 2007 Manslaughter and Homicide Act, because if you look on my medical record, there's just no record of me being at this hospital at all. I think that what they were trying to do by weeing on my clothes was sort of intimidate me into sort of saying that this, kind of my testimony and my evidential narrative was all a piss take, you say it was a piss take. And it's they're just really, really, really worried about being held accountable, because it's not just sort of a few spelling mistakes on a few medical forms. There's been some quite serious shit that's gone down. Anyway, the regions and bullshit of Gemini. That's 10 minutes you've heard about my I forgot to say about it. My GP rang me yesterday, and there's nothing on the GP records to show that I'm at this hospital. They could have got the information from my social media pages. It does say that I'm sectioned at Signet. Q-Stoke, I'm on Nash ward now, but I was on previously the acute ward in 24 till 25. I was moved up to the lodge in June 25. Was there until New Year's Eve, or I can't even remember when I came down here. I think it was January or something. Anyway, yeah. They were ringing to ask me to re-register with a different GP. It was closer to where I am, and they're doing that in the basis of it can only be hearsay from social media, because their record keeping system, they must have looked at the record keeping system, which only says detained by MH. That's from a GP at their practice at NHS England, and it doesn't say where, so they can only have kind of had a little stalk on the internet, check my Twitter or Facebook, and right, he's at Weston-super-Mare Signet. This is the receptionist at, or maybe, I don't know who tells the receptionist what to do at the Kingswood GP, but we had quite an interesting conversation where she was I put it through Gemini, and said she was going to email me, explain to me, and they said that Gemini just said, in short, that the receptionist's not in the right. If you're being discharged back to Bristol, which is the plan, once I'm ready to leave hospital, then there's no reason for you to change GP. But she sort of she was really impolite as well. She was a proper, here Bristol, hello my lover, here Brodie McLeod, how are you doing? Well, the thing is, because you're out of area, well, we don't, we think you should re-register with another GP. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, sound lovely, mate. Like, let me just check that. And it was like, whoop, nope, you're fucking full of shit. What you're doing is completely wrong. She was like, oh, well, maybe it's, fair enough to her. She's she's a receptionist. I'm not trying to kind of like insult her or belittle her. I'm sure she works very hard, and I've got a great deal of enamoring and unsurpassed respect for people who try to work in industries where they save other people's lives. It's a pretty fucking noble thing to do, unless of course you're trying to fuck somebody over, in which case it makes you a cunt. But doesn't really need to be said, does it? Really, I think most people know that, like, if you get involved in like really serious organised crime, especially if you work for a healthcare provider, that's like really out of order, because you've got people in like vulnerable situations and you're criminally mistreating them. Fuck that. Anyway, that's 11 minutes now. So Shock Doctrine, it's a really good book. I haven't actually read it, but the core thesis is disaster capitalism. The central thesis of the Shock Doctrine is that the global triumph of neoliberal free market capitalism, specifically the brand by Milton Friedman at the Chicago School of Economics, was not achieved through democratic consensus or a natural ideological evolution. Instead, it was systematically pushed through during moments of extreme collective trauma. Klein argues that when a society is profoundly disorientated by massive shocks, such as a war, terrorist attack, a natural disaster, or a severe economic meltdown, the public is too distracted, fearful, and disorganised to protect its own interests. During these windows of vulnerability, the triad of deeply unpopular policies is rapidly rammed through by governments and corporate interests. So there's one of them's massive privatisation, sort of transferring public wealth and services to private corporations. Then you've got deregulation, removing rules that govern corporate behaviour and protection for workers of the environment. So, the jury system we've just lost, like the judges are on strike. I don't know if legal aid is still a thing. I guess it is. It's kind of quite relevant to read this book now. I haven't got the propensity to buy a copy, but I think that you all should. If that makes me a twat, then so be it. But so cuts in social spending, gutting the social safety net, public housing, public education. Haven't seen that happen just yet. But Klein calls this systematic exploitation of crises disaster capitalism. The narrative arc. So Klein structures the book chronologically, tracing the evolution of this strategy over several decades. She uses a powerful recurring metaphor, psychiatric shock therapy. So the metaphor is a bit like what happens to the collective consciousness. It's like what happens to the individual consciousness, right? So wiping the slate clean. The book begins by exploring CIA-funded sensory deprivation and electroshock experiments of psychiatrist Dr. Ewen Cameron in the 1950s. Cameron believed that by shocking a patient, he could erase their personality and write a new, healthy one onto the blank slate. Klein uses this as a direct metaphor for what Milton and his disciples sought to do to nations: use a massive shock to erase their social contract, build free market utopia from scratch. It's a bit fucking like sort of flibbity, gibbity logic. I mean, like, I lost my memory when I was younger. There was these two different women that I was with for short times that you definitely would have told your mates about. And I also was got a girl pregnant too, and she had kids, and I forgot about the kids and the pregnancy and these other two women who I was very close with, because I had electroshock therapy provided by NHS to such an extent that I lost my memory completely. I didn't remember any of that shit until like years later. Anyway, the 1970s, part 2, was, Naomi Klein puts it, a bloody proving ground. The narrative's first real-world application of the shock doctrine takes place in South America. Klein details Augusto Pinochet's violent coup against the democratically elected social president Salvador Allende, maybe that's pronounced. The coup was the political shock, so immediately followed by economic shock therapy designed by Chilean economists trained at the University of Chicago. Because these policies caused massive unemployment and poverty, a third shock was required. the shock of state terror and torture to silence dissidents. Pretty fucked up. So in Argentina, similar pattern is described during the Argentine junta's dirty war, where state terrorism provided the cover necessary to impose radical free market reforms. So the 80s and the 90s, economic shocks and democratic transitions as the world shifted from dictatorships to the tactic evolved. Physical torture was less frequently used, but severe economic crises serve the same disorientating purpose. So in Bolivia, hyperinflation was used as a rationale for rapid, brutal austerity. You kind of see this. Just Google structural readjustment loans by the IMF and look at what they do to countries. It causes austerity in every country. They put money into the economy that's made out of debt. It's lent into the economy. It's actually created, like the same as when you print a banknote, it's created into the economy and has to be paid back plus interest. So that interest payment has to always come from the domestic sovereign states in national infrastructure budget. It can't come from anywhere else. It can only come from the government. If you go and get a credit card and you've got to pay the interest, you can't offset that to anybody else. Like you got to pay it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way it works with governmental spending in the IMF. Anyway, in the 93s, 1990s, early 90s in Russia, just after Boris Yeltsin, the Soviet Union, and all that shit. Shock of transition, she claims, eventually sending tanks to fire on the Russian parliament to violently force through the privatisation of state assets, creating a Russian oligarchy, which has been quite catastrophised by many people. Apparently they bring about 17 trillion into London every year because it's so easy. Russian criminal gentlemen and oligarchs who are legitimate and very much a bit like our peer, landed gentry. In South Africa, Klein argues that while Nelson Mandela ANC successfully negotiated political liberation from apartheid, they were outmanoeuvred economically. The outgoing regime and the international finance institutions locked the new government into international debt and trade agreements, effectively continuing economic apartheid under a democratic facade. So the noughties, 2000, the privatisation of disaster itself. So in later chapters, Klein argues that the disaster capitalism reached a new, highly lucrative stage where corporations began to profit not just from the aftermath of disaster, but from the disaster response. So Iraq and the war on terror. The invasion of Iraq began with, it was literally named shock and awe by Blair following the invasion. US envoy Paul Bremer attempted to instantly convert Iraq into a corporate free trade zone, privatising everything from military presence via contractors like Blackwater and state-owned factories. If anyone knows anyone at Blackwater, I'd love to, drop me a text in it. Hurricane Katrina 2005, while the physical destruction wiped out New Orleans, the shock doctrine response wiped out the city's public infrastructure. So public housing projects were demolished to make way for high-end condos, gentrification, and schools got replaced by private schools, and everything became for rich people. So that kind of happens in this country, didn't it? 2004 Asian tsunami. In places like Sri Lanka, the military government and government used the devastation to clear coastal fishing communities, preventing. I don't really know how she kind of linked. I guess I should read this book. I don't know how she's kind of segue from that into something else. But anyway, Klein's narrative is a counter history of the modern global economy. It challenges the conventional narrative that free markets and free people do go hand in hand. Instead, the shock doctrine argues that the purest forms of capitalism have historically required anti-democratic conditions, violence, and profound human suffering to take root. Would you like me to elaborate on how critics? No. So, you've reached the end of the video now. Someone tried to call me from a charity yesterday, and they phoned me on my Tesco SIM. I've got a dual SIM. This is a Tesco and mobile phone that I've got on contract, and I don't use a Tesco SIM. I don't know the number. My number is 07576 713026. That's public. You can look on my Facebook and Instagram and X profiles for that. I'm happy to speak to anybody who wants to contact me for whatever reason. Unless it's, I don't know, I've got a message on Teams the other day from this, there's just so many fucking bait trolls out there. I haven't really got very many close friends left. I've kind of alienated myself over the last 10 years by sort of don't know, saying in my psychology session the other day, it's like David and Goliath is a great fucking book, but it's not meant to be an instruction manual, you know. I don't know if it was Malcolm X or Martin Luther King who said, injustice everywhere. No, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. I should know it. She says it on the fucking wall, like right outside the house I used to live in with my girlfriend Phoebe for like a year and a half maybe. There's a huge mural in St Paul's, a little park that's nice for a zoo. I loved living in St Paul's. It was a beautiful time in my life. We lived in a ground floor flat at 139 Ashley Road. It was like a sandstone building, and we had a lovely front garden, and it was cheap, like the budgie, 550 quid a month. So we split the rent, and I was working at Aztec West, suited and booted, making big bucks, doing really well in my new job. And for a minute, it was like things looked like my life might not turn into some sort of like post-apocalyptic dystopian conspiracy, but it fucking did. So anyway, catch you in a bit. Ooh.